Well, hey everybody, welcome to another StreamText video review of security, privacy, GDPR, and HIPAA compliance using StreamText.Net. I want to welcome you guys all here. It's a topic that's been coming up more and more, and so I thought it was worthwhile really to go through. First I'll cover the security features of StreamText. I'll also cover our privacy policy, things we do to ensure the privacy of your customers' information, but also look at things like GDPR, which you may or may not know is really the rule in the EU for how you need to be exchanging and managing your clients' information. And part of that is a big thing we were just approved for was Privacy Shield, which is a certification from the Commerce Department that allows us to actually transfer data between the EU and the US securely, and also we have a recourse mechanism built into that. So anyways, those are some things I'll get into in a little bit going through that. So let me just get started. I'm just going to talk through some of the security features StreamText has. I'll log in and even show you some of those features when I get through it. And then I'll talk about privacy, GDPR, and HIPAA compliance. So let me get started here. Again, what I'm going to be covering here. HIPAA compliance has been coming up as well, so I want to make sure I cover that in addition to GDPR. HIPAA compliance is really specifically related to the healthcare field, but it has become more and more important. And it follows the general themes really that are becoming important now of protecting your clients' information. So security and privacy are now really important. They're critical for many clients, not just, it used to be just your corporate clients, maybe banking and those type of industries, but it's becoming more and more important. And so you need to be really transparent with what you do with your clients' information. You need to let them know what is stored and then how it can be deleted as well. These are some key things in there. One of the things that in this industry that's really a difficult the transcript itself, I guess, is a difficult piece of information that you need to be managing. There's a lot of information to be stored in there, so you need to be really clear with if you are storing it and how you need to be how that can be deleted. Our privacy policy actually does a pretty good job of summarizing how we manage data, what we store, and how we actually manage, deleting and removing that information if requested. And if you need to, you can always go to our website to pull that up. It's on our main site, on our security sites. Actually, when you log in every time, it'll be pulled up and you'll be able to see that. And for customers in the EU, this is becoming a requirement. So security and privacy are really going hand in hand. Let me go and pull that up for us here. So if you don't mind, I'm going to try and navigate to that page. And I've got our terms of service right here. And again, you'll see this when you sign in. We have a link to it on there. It's also on our support page in more detail. And we cover a lot of things on here, obviously a lot of the details under here, but the privacy policy is really where you're going to see the details on what we store, what we can do with it, and then the right to access, change, and delete that information. And so these are becoming more and more important. And again, not just for folks in the EU, but actually your clients here in the US. So it's always good to have a good understanding for what data we use, what we store, and what we do with it. Again, you've got access to it. And we've also got one addition to this, which would be our Privacy Shield policy, which I'll cover in more detail. This is specific to the EU. And it was is part of the Department of Commerce. They approve you. You have to go through a certification process, and it basically allows us to have to transfer data between the EU and the US and have that be compliant with all the rules and regulations of the EU. So it's a pillar of GDPR, which I'll get into later, and an important part of that. But let me go into some of our security features, and I'm just going to give you a quick summary of what those are. So security and privacy I just covered here, and let me go into some of the security features. So what can you do in StreamText to protect that link? Because a lot of privacy is required, really involves security and vice versa. So securing your link in that caption feed can be really important. One of the simplest things we have is unique event names. I'll show you this when we get in there, but you can create an event name that nobody can guess. It's a long character string with a bunch of different funky characters in it. And that is one very simple way actually to protect that link and make sure no one can guess what that link is going to be. The next one is password protection. You can assign a password to an event to prevent people from accessing it. So everyone must know that password to log in. We can also set it up so you can require assigned customers to sign in. You can assign a customer to an event. That customer has a username and password that they can manage. And they must sign in with that username and password in order to see the event. We also track those logins as well. We also support Google OAuth and their login. So if you use Gmail or any of those type of things, or your clients use Gmail or any of those Google type accounts, they can use that account as well to log in with. So you can also protect it with that. There's also end-to-end encryption for the StreamText feed. This goes all the way from the writer through to the end consumer. So the connector is encrypting that to our servers, and then we're encrypting that out to your consumers as well. So having that ability is very important and almost a given in almost every case. The last one, retaining the transcript. This is probably the most important thing. If you're going to be retaining a transcript, you need to be very sure that what the information you're storing, and is that confidential information? Is that something that you're going to need to get specific permission to store? You need to be very clear with your clients if you are storing that information, that you are storing it and where it's being stored, just in case there's something on there that needs to be removed. And in many cases, you're not going to be retaining the transcript, especially for a lot of the secure applications. So let me go over into StreamText, and I'm just going to show you how these work. And I'm just going to go in and schedule an event. And just to walk you through some of the basics here. So the first thing I talked about was creating an event name that nobody can guess. And that's real simple. You just come in here, that's that generate button you probably always wanted to click next to the event name. And when you click on it, you'll see it's going to generate an event name that's totally random. This is a very simple way to protect that link. No one's going to guess that. Very simple. Doesn't require the user to really do anything differently other than you provide them that link with that unique name. Then for the other security features, if you go under our security tab, this is where we've got most of the security selections for an event. Simplest is adding an event password. So you can type in any password you want in here. But StreamText. Anything you want in there, any character string, just no spaces are allowed in there. Well, actually spaces are allowed. I shouldn't say that. You can put a space at the end, and within there, it will be saved off. So if you do use spaces, you need to be careful about making sure you communicate that to your clients as well. So that's a simple way to do it. Everyone's going to have to enter StreamText in this case in order to view the feed. But we have some more advanced features. So the require customers to log in is a feature that requires your customers, when you set up a customer over here in the left-hand menu, you'll see there's a customers tab. When you set up a customer on there, you can require them to log in. And that's as simple as checking that off. And when they're required to log in, they have to enter their email address and password in order to access the feed. The other thing is down here is force HTTPS. Now, if you're using a password or something like that, it's going to automatically require an HTTPS feed. But you can do that for a regular link as well. This will allow the feed to only be viewed with HTTPS and only in a secure manner. Again, another way to do that. Disabling the standard web player is a security feature when you're working with something like Adobe Connect or potentially Zoom. And you don't want the regular StreamText player to even have text flowing to it. So you can actually turn off the regular StreamText player. And then this last one down here, retain transcript, again, I think is one of the more important pieces here for security. If you're retaining transcripts to our server, which is great, you can edit them, you can do post-production work. There's a lot of benefits to doing that. But if you are retaining it, that's where you're probably going to have information that's going to be of a sensitive nature. And if you are doing things with corporate or some clients that do have sensitive information, you're going to want to make sure, A, either don't retain the transcript, or you let that client know that you're retaining the transcripts and where they're being retained. I'll show you the customer notification. This is where you'd add the customers in. I'm not going to go into detail on the customers in that functionality, but customers are really another user. So again, more security features. So let me go back, main presentation here. So I've covered most unique. So StreamText has quite a few security features, and if used correctly, they can provide you a very secure environment in delivering your real-time feed and in the consumer receiving your real-time feed. So why is all this really important? Well, GDPR, which was passed in the EU starting last May or March, where GDPR went into effect, really does cover how you need to communicate what data you're storing, how you're storing it, how it can be deleted, and how you can be transparent about that information. You've really got to be clear, especially in the EU, with how you're doing that. Now, our privacy statement and our privacy shield statement both cover that in detail. So if you do have clients that are in the EU or those areas, you can provide them our terms of service, which has our privacy shield statement in there and our privacy document in there. They can go through that and get a good understanding for what we're storing and how we're storing it and why we're doing that. Again, we also have, the key is really just being transparent. And the biggest liability you're going to have is going to be retaining that transcript. You may not be able to retain transcripts for clients in the EU. That's may just be a fact, unless you're dealing with very non-confidential information. Maybe it's a seminar or a public forum or something like that. But if you're doing one-on-one services or services that are at the corporate level, more than likely you're not going to be retaining that transcript, which is the default in StreamText, which is not to retain that. I want to hit on, though, the biggest news here is a privacy shield certification. And this took quite a while to get approved on, but basically what it does is it allows data transfers from the EU, UK to the US. And it provides a recourse mechanism for companies and people in the EU and UK to be able to come back, validate what data is being saved, or get recourse if there is some sort of violation of that certification. So it is a requirement for GDPR. And so basically it's a requirement to do any business, any streaming services in the EU or the UK. So that's very important to have. And so if you do have clients that are in the EU or the UK, I would provide them a copy of our terms of service and our privacy shield document, just so they know they're covered and that we covered and that we have basically implemented that framework correctly so that that can be protected. So anyways, a big deal and a big part of why we wanted to cover security ahead of time. I know it's not maybe the most exciting thing about StreamText and using the platform, but at the same time, it's becoming just a more and more important piece of that. So HIPAA compliance, which follows out of this, and the reason I wanted to include HIPAA compliance is security and privacy really relate directly to HIPAA compliance as well. Now, HIPAA compliance has a lot to do with how you manage your files as well, what you do with the transcript on your computer when you're done with it. And so there is another layer to it. But as far as the transmission of information through StreamText, just some basics that you need to follow. Typically, the patient conversations will need to be protected with a password or a user login. So at the very least, you're going to be entering that StreamText password field. The communications must be encrypted. So you're going to be forcing HTTPS so that it can only be viewed over a secure channel. And you never want to retain the transcript in StreamText. If you're retaining it, that's going to be a violation. Or if it's not a violation, it's going to require usually some sort of audit by the risk management team to come through and actually verify that it's being stored in a manner that they can be compliant with their best practices. So again, HIPAA compliance is something that you need to be real transparent with, and you need to be very upfront with how you're storing and managing the data. Again, we're here to help you with any of that. So if you've got questions, if you're needing to be compliant, either GDPR, HIPAA compliance, you have questions about customers in the EU, the UK, maybe even Canada, feel free to let us know. I mean, we've got we can definitely talk through the technical side with them, and we can go through any kind of security audit that may be necessary. Again, if you have any questions, though, please let us know what that would be. So again, I hope this wasn't too boring to go through this, but I really wanted to cover, the security features and how that directly impacts you as far as GDPR, how you're going to be working in the EU and the UK, HIPAA compliance, and just your day-to-day best practices. Really, a lot of this transparency and a lot of the movement that's been happening in the last year or two is really reaction to some of the larger groups like Facebook, Google, and what they're doing with your information. It's just becoming part of how you have to do business. So again, we've tried to put the tools in place and the framework behind StreamText so that you can, at least from a technology perspective, provide those services to your customers. Again, thank you for your time. If you've got any questions, please let us know. We're always here to help, and appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.